Okay, so I think we are now live in YouTube. So hello everybody. This is going to be the last meeting of April for the security working group. So yeah, first of all, before we start with the agenda, there is any announcement that anyone want to do? Okay, no announcement for now. So first topic in the agenda is the vulnerability review. Not very sure if we have new vulnerabilities.
OpenSSL announced another low-level severity recently. However, it doesn't have a release, so we can't do anything. But apparently, the CVE was not disclosed yet. But once it's disclosed, this repository will take it.
Yeah,
Okay.
It hasn't shown up yet, but we do have like, I don't know, we already have like 20. There's 2 or 3 which multiplied times all the streams means there's a bunch there. I guess, although I see we have 19 still, so we may have a little bit of work to do in that repository to add 20 and change 19. So that's a good reminder. But I think this for this discussion, there's nothing new.
Okay.
Right now.
Okay. I assume we ignore for 14, right? Because it's going to be end of life this week, right?
Yeah, and that
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe end of this week we will then remove it.
I will create an issue there to add node.js 20 support and drop node.js 14.
Yeah, it's a good idea. And then we can land that just after the end of the.
That's good, yeah. Okay. The next topic in the agenda is the OpenSSF scorecard monitor review, which let me share you the link on the chat as well. Here's the chat. Okay. So it's pull request 9065. Basically, I made the typical pull request. There's a new version. Well, first of all, there is a new version of the monitor that we are using. I think it's beta 4 or something, or 5. I don't remember by heart, but there is a important change. We collect some feedback from the previous meeting, and we released the visualizer. So Tebagometis made this change and prepared the release and so on. So if you now press into the full report, you go to a different page. Before you go to devs and the project details, now you go to a different visualizer which only contains the API information fresh. So you can see more accurate. So we don't see the discrepancies as the last time, between having different scoring and results. So more or less is freshed, although it can be anchored with the hash of the commits. That's going to be the next step. And potentially we are going to make a little change also to improve the option to compare between 2 hashes. So we commit hashes, so we can understand more what have changed it in the scoring, because right now it's like a manual process and it's a little bit tricky. So I did that analysis below. So in the conclusions, it's a little bit tricky because I noticed that Node.js has decreased only 0.3 points, which is not a lot. And I was thinking like, okay, it's the typical minor thing. And then checking out the changes, it was more complex because we increase in some areas and we decrease in other, but at the end, the big difference is only less than half point. So
I think we decreased on the code review, and it might be related to the fast track string, right?
I think so. That's the same with Undici also, because in Undici we have the same kind of flag.
Yeah, actually, the release, the landing process in the Undici is like different. I was saying, I was thinking about like when we acquire fast track, it means that we will land the pull request before 48 hours, and it might somehow decrease the scorecard if that relies on that rule. I don't know exactly how it works behind the scenes, but just a guess.
Okay. Can be. Yeah. I think that might be potentially the reason. Also another thing is we have now more binary artifacts than before. So we decrease a lot in the scoring for the binary artifacts. I think we were like in a 7 or something like that, and now we are like in a 0 point, if I remember well. So yeah, there are new binaries mostly on the folder dependencies, devs, and testing related ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one I thought was, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I thought that one was interesting because like in those WASM binaries, there are some which are actually, I think we should be worried about, like the LLHTTP dependencies. Some of the other ones are just test binaries though, right? And those, I don't think, like we support WASM. We need some WASM to test it. So we shouldn't be penalized for that. My question in the issue was like, do we have a contact in terms of like the scorecard and how it works? Because that would be a good feedback to say, this is the situation, this isn't right. What's the thoughts in terms of like helping projects? Like if we could exclude some and say, well, no, these are like, these make sense. Or maybe they'll explain to us why it still makes sense to have a lower score because of that, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Let me see if I can...
Let me interrupt for a second there. We're having a similar issue with other Ada too. Some of the issues are like it's giving false positives. We have a scorecard point of 5.9, even though we fulfill certain things. So I think at some level it's flawed because they're trying to find a common ground between multiple different languages, and even detecting release workflows is not working properly for Ada's case. So I 100% share Michael's concerns, and I also wanted to come and attend this meeting to talk about those kinds of things in order to find a common ground. Maybe we're doing something too with Ada, even though it's not in the Node.js organization. It's one of the core dependencies of Node, and I want to make sure that we're on the same track. So yeah.
So I think like in this case, it's what can we do to help improve the tool?
Yeah.
Like in this case, if there was something that says, well, we're going to whitelist these and, you know, because
under a specific path or something.
Yeah, like we could say if it's under the test directory, then we're going to, you know, or I guess these are under.
Yeah, mostly on the
dependencies.
And then
we should definitely blacklist the like ignore the dependency and test folder for sure.
Right, so that seems fair.
The dependency, I'm not quite sure about dependency because for instance we measure Unity but we don't measure V8, and it doesn't mean that it might V8 can cause some troubles for us.
Right, but these are under tests, right? So
no, yes, in the V8 test, but they are V8 third party too. But they are example,
Those are a little bit trickier, yeah.
I mean, I guess the argument might be like you're running these binaries that you don't know what's in them, but what are we supposed to do about that, right? Like, I think the scorecard should be something where, you know, it can't just be, well, you get a low score because you have something that runs WASM, right? Like, anyway, it's worth getting some feedback, like in talking to them and say, hey, here's our challenge. What's the recommendation? Because you don't want people like giving up because it doesn't seem to be relevant.
I see the point. Yeah, in terms of feedback, I'm in touch with the maintainers of the library. So I mean of the scorecard itself. They are doing some kind of feedback collection actually with the people that use the API and so on. So I have a meeting just after this one. So I will share this feedback, and I shared also additional feedback about the fuzzing and so on in the past. So as far as I know, they have some plans in the near future to kind of flag these kind of things easier, so you can, you know, kind of control what you want to include on the scoring or not. For example, if fuzzing is not relevant to your project, maybe you can ignore it and so on. But yeah, it's kind of under designing process, so they are collecting early feedback, so they are planning to do some changes on that direction. So I think it's going to be very aligned for what we see. So yeah, potentially the changes are on that direction, but yeah, I will share the feedback directly with them, And if we plan to go more deeper session, maybe we can organize a direct session with them also and provide like a more detailed feedback.
And I guess if there's a repo, as you mentioned, we could open an issue there saying like,
Yeah.
hey, here's an explanation of our problem. What
Yeah.
are the suggestions for, addressing that?
Yeah, and we can link to those videos to specific timing, so it's better to get the full context. Yeah. We can go in that direction. Yeah, they have an open source repository and so on with issues, so it's easy.
Yeah, hadn't thought of that, so that's probably a good way to do it.
That sounds good. Yeah, let me put this a little bit bigger. So yeah, those were the challenges. Also, we have some increase on Node because it detected the OSS fast. So I think we start to make a good progress on that. Also, some Pine dependencies were merged, so that also increased a little bit. No new vulnerabilities detected. Also, that was okay. I think we patched those one. And for Undici, I think there are 2 new artifacts on the library folder as well, and some unreview human changes it. That was probably because no review was done on that. And for the security working group, we finally achieved the amount of commits that we need with the SAST and with the CI test. So that's good news. We achieved the 30 of 30 that we need. So that's good. Now let's try to keep it and don't mess up, because then we have another 30 commits to go ahead and recover the points.
The OSS fuzz, where do results for that show up in the Node project?
In the Node project itself or in the report?
Well, no, in the Node project itself. So like, for example, if there's, it's running OSS fuzz now, that in theory tells us something, like it can report problems, or I'm just trying to understand is that something kind of like code coverage that we can use for people to look at and say, okay, here are the results. I'm going to go improve this, right?
Yeah. Maybe make some sense to do some research about it. So, because I don't know if we made any of us made any change on that direction in Node, or it's something that just happened in the last 2 weeks.
I assumed like somehow we turned that on or something like that.
I can see some references in the code. Let me see. That might be relevant. So.
We are with a very good score in the security working group, right?
Yeah.
8.2. Okay.
8.2. Yeah, I still want to check with the scorecard maintainers if there is like a rate. Yeah, I remember that from the previous conversation, to know which one is the level to stop for us, and we are okay, or if we need to keep pushing. But yeah, maybe, I don't know. I don't think we made any change recently to OSFUS, so maybe just the way they measure this has changed, and now we got extra points for that. But before it was 0 on fusion, so yeah.
Right, that's what I'm just, So, okay, I thought we turned it on or something, and that.
I can check it out in the change log from the scorecard to see if they made any change related, and now we have a better scoring because of that.
Yeah, okay.
Good. So, well, an additional also I added the link in the pull request. Let me share a second also. So it's you may remember that from previous conversations, to the step security dashboard, where you can also visualize like the full organization repos. So that's another way where you can see it and also run some fixes if you want specifically also for some scenarios, or you want to check over the time also. That I think Baron made some demos for that, like in 2 meetings ago. And here we can see also the evolution and which are the highest and so on. So yeah, just an additional note. I put it here. So maybe you can, I'm planning to do a pull request to include this on the template for the file. So you will have it at the end of the report as well. So you can see and interact with it. Yeah, that was all from my side for the scorecard monitor review. let's jump to the agenda. So there is a issue which is 953, which is related to the CII best practices. We start some discussion offline, if I remember well, for this topic. And we discovered that we already have this best practices badge already for Node, made long time ago by Rod. So the idea or how I suggested to do the approach, but this is super open to discussion, is to have some kind of sort control over it. So we can, because at the end it's a form with tons of questions. And it's a self-assessment questionnaire kind of thing. So if you have properly fulfilled the responses and everything seems okay, you got different tiers. So you can start with the passing level, you can go to the silver level, gold level, and so on. So for the first level, like the entry level, we already have that, but it's very old. I think it's from 2016, the last time we made any update. So I think potentially some stuff has changed. So I created one pull request for that, which is this 954, which has like a markdown with all of this information and some comments that it might be different or not. So you can just check it out what is in the README. I try to copy the questions, so it's easier to kind of make discussion around it and make some changes. I was not very sure how to make it because actually only one person or several group can do changes on the responses that we provide to the tool. But I think it's really hard to keep tracking on kind of a control version or so on. Or maybe we can move to a Google document. I don't know. I was thinking more.
I'm wondering if these documents should live in the security working group repository or the Node.js one.
I think Node.js for sure, but we might discuss it here first, and then we can just move what we have in terms of conclusions.
Yeah, the CII stands for core in infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they rename it, I think, to Best Practices Batch Program. Yeah, to make it easier.
I'm not familiar with it, but what is the main achievement by doing that?
Yeah, let me share my screen and I can show you how this works. So basically, this is a different OpenSSF project. Yeah, so normally what you get at the end is a list of projects that they have submitted. So you have some kind of scoring. So this can be like from passing to gold, silver, and so on. So you have different levels. And the good thing is, you can just check it out, enter in the application, and you have tons of questions here related to the project. You know, like the project has a website and so on. It has a FLOSS license. Which kind of license? Do you have, how you keep the documentation, contributions? Do you use kind of encryption signatures, so on for release? I mean, there's plenty of questions on that directions. So you can more or less understand a little bit more about the project, and you don't have to ask these kind of questions in issues or so on. So it's like a kind of information that the program owner shares around the application that they have. So it's easier for others to evaluate the level of requirements on what they have. More or less, like, for example, cryptographic and so on. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Megan.
I was just going to say, I think this is really interesting. What I had no idea that this was already the case.
Yeah.
I think some documentation in the core repo, which kind of says, one of the projects would be maintaining our OSSF best practices badge. The project aims to maintain this. This requires that we do blah, blah, and blah, because it references things like the covariety static analysis, which is great. But if people had said we should turn that off, I don't know that we would have known to go back and say, well, okay, that means we're going to drop out of our best practices badge, right? So I think something in the project which is possibly discoverable. I'm not saying that people will immediately find that, but having something that says, hey, this is one of the things we do. Here's the things that we do that support it.
Yeah.
It would actually be helpful to point to when somebody says, well, why do we do this? You can say, well, we do this. It's recommended in the best practices. We've said we do it. So, and then how did, you said only certain people can fill it out. Like if we needed to make a change.
Yeah,
to this? Who would do that?
When you create a project, like for example, this one is from Node. So normally at the end, I think you have who has the ownership or the last person who makes the change. So in this case is Rod, but I think can be more, well, let me make this bigger. So it can be other people. So because I submit one of my pet projects just to experiment with the full questionnaire, and I was able as owner to add other owners. So obviously this can be a bigger list in the future. But yeah, worst case scenario, we can use a typical alias, for the build team or for security or for other working groups. So we can use that, and then other people can access easily. But I think, we can keep a list of who should have access or not, and make these modifications. But yeah, I think in the case of Node, we have already one submitted and is already passing. But yeah, might be good to have a double check, just to see that.
It hasn't been updated to 2016. And like I said, I don't know if very many people were aware. So did we drop some of the things that this points to? I don't know, right? I think a review of the answers
will be a good option.
Sure that we have people who could we figure out who's responsible for being able to update this. We have people from the TSC on that list. Should we get the security working group to kind of say, hey, we'll volunteer to do that or whatever? But I think, and then some documentation in the project that kind of ties it together would all be quite interesting. But it's nice that it's a review versus having to write it all from scratch. We can look at it and say,
exactly.
Is this still true? Yep. Okay, great. Otherwise,
Yeah, that's the idea, more or less, with this kind of pull request, I think. So you have a Markdown. I make a Markdown version, copy pasting from the questions. So you have question answer that we provide.
Right.
So
okay.
we can review it and comment and so on, or we can just approve it. So at least we have a first review ourselves, and then it's easier to bring that to the TSC or other members. So it's easier to get the full context. So I have some questions, I don't know, like a static source code analysis, if it's in place or not. So we can just double check that if it is in place, because I was not very sure, but others are more or less clear. And if we want to, as we are already passing that level, so maybe if we want to jump to the silver level, or you have another plenty of questions to answer, obviously. Some of them are pre-filled because you already filled the previous one, so you have some of them. And the same go for the level. So we already are in the 7% of that one. So it's a starting point.
Okay, cool.
But these are more tricky questions, and some of them are not applicable at all, so you can just ignore them, so that's okay, because there is a lot of cryptographical and a lot of things. So if we want to discuss that level, I think I created a separate pull request for that, which is the silver level. And that's it. So you have here the document, and I try it, if I remember well, to try to put some answers to some of the parts, or the ones that I see that we can meet or not, so we can start making some discussions around it and see if that makes sense or not. But I will ignore for now the gold level at all, because if you don't got the silver, you cannot jump to the next level. So it doesn't make any sense to start discussing. But I just keep this as a draft, so it's there in case that we move faster than expected. But that's the idea. So my suggestion will be to try to preview the entry level. First thing, we're happy with that. We got some approvals. That's okay. Let's discuss about later on where these documents should live. And then let's check it out if we can make at least some approach to the silver level or clarify the most potential for that. And then we can discuss with Rod also how to get access for other people, who should own the document, and so on. I'm happy to lead this initiative. I'm not pretty sure what's going to be the next step, but at least for now, I think this reviewing the passing level and thinking about the silver level can be a good target for us, and later on we can promote that outside of the group.
I think that's
very
great. And maintaining them in docs in our GitHub is a great idea, so that we can more easily comment and propose changes and stuff.
Because if not, I think it's super limited to who can have access, and also you don't know if anyone makes any change because we don't have any feedback directly. So
and we want to have there should be some process at some point that says, hey, kind of like we have a mailing list, but before we land changes to the mailing list, we actually asked only the people who can update the mailing list to land those changes. I could see it being similar for this, is The people who can actually go here and update it are the ones who can land changes to there, and they're expected to go and update it at the same time while they do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I finished to submit the changes, I merged the changes, and that's it. So
Yeah.
it's synchronized kind of manually, but yeah, easy. I don't expect a lot of changes over the time, but yeah,
No,
Sys
but
clear,
yeah. Okay. No, I think that's great work on that one.
So there is just one question from Ulysses in that pull request, Michael, is about the static code analysis on every comment. I think this is we do it, right?
We still have Coverity running, and it runs. I'll have to check. I think it runs once a day.
Yes,
but
at least a day.
I have to go think about that, and I can answer there.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think I will approve the pull request, but I'm pretty sure, almost sure that one is.
Yeah, I think we'll want to go through
us.
the questions.
Yeah.
Like I'd want to read through and say, yeah, okay, these answers.
This sounds okay.
Yeah. Like haven't looked at them. I'm sure they were all, I'm sure Rod did a good job.
Yep.
I just wonder if things have changed over time. So that's the sanity check I'd want to do.
Yeah, I have checked it yesterday night, and looks like everything is the same for me. But yeah, it's good to do it in a session.
That's good.
Okay, well, what is the next step? Like, do you go through all the questions now, or do you wanna?
I think we can leave it for
session?
offline, because it's going to be a long process if we go over them. I mean, probably there are like 40 questions. Most of them, they are related to documentation, contribution, link, and so on. That's super clear, but other are more like thoughtful. So maybe we can try to answer and discuss offline. And if we see, points for discussion, we can bring the topic to the next agenda, and then we can discuss specifically some parts.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. Like I'll go through and say, yeah, does this match my understanding? If yes, nothing to discuss. If no, and similar to if anybody is like, hey, I'm not sure this is right, then we can actually discuss it at a meeting.
Yeah, I think next topic we can, next meeting we can discuss a little bit about the silver one, because there are plenty of tricky questions, but in the passing one, I assume it's going to be okay. Okay, so next topic in the agenda is 929, which is related to improve Node.js scorecard.
Yes, this one I will just comment with, but basically, it's just that there's just a summary in the main issue that you publish it, so I'll just use it. Let me just put a new date from the issue 961. The Node.js score decreased 0.3, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah. Let me go through it. Just send that message.
Yeah, that's good. And we can include also the reasons behind, so a little bit of the analysis. If you prefer, for the next manual update, I can do it also on the issues as a reply, so it's easier to check it out if you want.
Okay. That's wonderful. Great. So I don't think there's nothing else to discuss in that issue.
I think that's okay. Yeah, we can jump to the permission model roadmap, which is 898.
I got some good feedbacks. Yesterday, I delivered a talk on CJS Apollo, and I discussed it with a few folks from the community about the permission model. They were not aware about it, so I think I need to spread the word more. But yeah, I think that there's a good start. I was talking today with Marco about the next steps of permission model. So we received some issues. I will fix it, and Marco probably will be working on the path result in the C++ side. because nowadays we don't support relative paths, and we can't use libuv or we can't use any C library because for two main reasons. It's not cross-platform compliant, and the second one is to block the event loop. Even if we use the libuv use case, it won't be reliable. If you go to the main repository, the main pull request for 4004, I have discussed it with Anna, and yeah, maybe the best approach, at least performance-wise, is to support the path.resolve in the C++ side. Basically, it's pretty much what we have on the JS side, that we compile, or we select the path.resolve based on the compile flag. We do it on the C++ side, and then we can avoid the possible transform path function that I created. So it will improve the performance when permission model is available. Well, I've discussed it with Michael, but nothing has changed since the release. And yeah, probably I will need to discuss about the config file around that. But yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, on my side, I would say that I will look into it with Rafael, so I will help on that.
Fantastic, Marco. In that case, next topic in the agenda is going to be about improved security working group scorecard, which is 884. I think the only thing pending for us, in case we need it, is fuzzing related, right? Is with the fuzzing that is open for help, right? So I tag it like a help wanted if anyone want to do some fuzzing around it. Maybe
So
community.
what would we fuzz in the security working group repo, right? Like it's not a product that we ship with APIs or anything.
That's true. Well, that's I think a side question that I have too, which is what if we want to publish the CVEs, the repository that the tool that we have with all the CVEs and so on for NPM and nodes. Should we make that as a package available on NPM so people can use it and so on? Because I think right now, for example, Rafael is using is my Node.js vulnerable, but it's taking the JSON directly from main, if I remember. So maybe we can ship it as a library, but I'm not very sure if it's something that we want to do. I mean, having there for years, so I'm not very sure if it's something that we plan or so. And if we do it in that
I don't
case,
know.
maybe
It comes to maintenance work, right? Like, is it something that, we've got cycles and or want to put our effort into that particular thing?
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a separate discussion, 100%. So, but yeah, so I'm not pretty sure also how much fuzzing is related.
I feel that regardless if we include or not in that repo, if someone looks to it, it means that we can apply it on Node.js or Unduchi or other repository. We are using the security working group repository just as a laboratory for further updates in the main repos. So I think, well, it won't hurt to include it, even though it might not be necessary.
That's a good point, yeah.
But I'm kind of like, what does fuzzing look like? What would it, because fuzz is against APIs, right? So what does turning it on mean? Like maybe the point is there is some code there, but otherwise
we do have kind of API when we update the indexes whenever a new vulnerability comes in. So it might work in that specific script.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I see the point. Like doing fuzzing against the JSON files on the GitHub URLs, right? So we can.
Actually, in the update for index, it's a script that we have, that
Oh, I
whenever
see.
we publish a vulnerability, a JSON,
Yep.
it generates the index.json, and this script can be we can use on this.
Yep. Okay. Okay.
But
Yeah,
just, I
let's see.
mean, it won't improve anything, honestly. Just improve the
Yeah.
scorecard,
That the
but it's
scoring.
a good experiment, at least, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see if I can get feedback about the fuzzing as an optional thing soon. So maybe we can just skip it. So yeah, let's see. But anyway, if anyone in the community is interested on, explore fuzzing on that scope, that will be nice because also we can learn from it. So that's okay. Yep. So automate update for all dependencies. That's a big progress done, I think.
Actually, we discussed it in the TSC, but we don't have a final answer yet, right, Michael? Or do we?
On which the
funding for secret release automation.
yeah, no, I have the next action to open an issue where we're going to have the broader discussion on that front.
Okay, so yeah, we are discussing it, but we don't have an answer yet,
Yeah.
but anytime soon, I hope.
Yeah. Sorry, I messed up because I was thinking that it was in the issue 828, but no, it was the 860. So yeah, my mess. Sorry. yeah, I see the point. Yeah, okay. I think next week in the agenda is, in this case, and I'm following correctly, is 859, which is assessments against best practices. I think that there are not a lot of news, I think.
Yeah, this is just the initiative issue. I think we are very good on that.
Yep.
I will just move it to the top. So basically it's the same as the announcement, or actually the Discord review.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. And
yeah, I think, and then we can jump to the next one, which is about policy integrity on Windows. So I think Bradley was working on that, as I remember, but not very sure if we have anything else new.
he created a pull request and implemented last week. It's basically a new flag that is -- require policy. Is that policy required? Yes, policy required. And this will help. As far as I know, I don't have much context on this, but as far as I know, it will help the single executable apps when a policy is required. So it means that we can build that application with that flag, and whenever you run that executable, it will require a policy by default. So the same we will apply eventually to the permission model. So this is quite useful because we can bundle, we can build or create the executable using that flag, and eventually we will create the -- permission required. So that will help even Electron apps and so on. So if you have time, review this pull request. It's pretty straightforward. So that will help a lot.
Fantastic. Yeah, we can see if we all can review it and provide some feedback to the pull request, so we can speed up a little bit the process.
He needs help with the design of two bits. Well, I will read it and maybe even one point of view. Yeah, I think we can do it asynchronous.
Yeah, we can.
For him.
Yeah, I think can be easier asynchronous. Yeah, then last topic in the agenda. Now, it's the one that has a lot of big step ahead is automate updates for all dependencies. Yeah, so go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, so I'll leave in the chat the link to the comment with the latest update. So basically, we're almost to the end of this initiative. So there is just one dependency left and one in progress. The last one is histogram. So I will take care of it. I'm quite confident, and at the next meeting, it's gonna be finished. Also, there is one open pull request about the whole moving the maintaining files, documents under a single folder. And I have created basically updated the maintaining dependency document. So now it lists all the dependencies and what they do and how we update them. So we have some documentation because previously there was almost none. And yeah, that's one other thing. Also, I would like to open an issue listing all the work that could be done in the future. For example, backporting some of the dependency update to previous version, and like other small things that we can do to improve generally this whole process. And on this regard, I would like to ask to be added to the team that takes care of GitHub Actions, so that I can be notified when something happens on the GitHub Actions, because like most of the work was done on that. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks for all your work on that. That's great.
Yeah, thanks for that, Marco. I just wanted to add something to there. I can't edit Michael's post on security WG repo because I'm not a member of the working group. But SIMD UTF is missing from that list, but it has automation, but just missing from that list. If you can update it, just like as an info, that would be perfect.
Yeah, we probably should do like make sure, Marco, you could take a look at the current dependencies, because that was like a snapshot in time.
Yes, there is also a mini match that's missing. So I think I can edit, so I will edit and add the missing dependencies, no problem. But like I checked and all the dependencies are automated, just missing from the list.
Okay, and that like we have actions that does the work, right? Is that the okay, great.
I also wanted to ask you something. This is like out of context for this meeting, but currently ESLint's update GitHub action is failing. In that scenario, do we have a mechanism in order to get notified in case updating script fails? I will just leave the.
Usually, if the action is failing, you can still update it manually. So in the sense that you can launch the script manually, but if the script is broken, obviously it needs some work to fix it. That's why I would also like to be involved with the GitHub action, so I know when a script fails, for example, because otherwise I get tagged into the issues and it's not.
So is that notified through a team on GitHub team or something else?
GitHub team.
Yeah.
Okay.
So currently somebody realizes that the GitHub workflows are failing and creates an issue. And most of the time this takes around like a week or two until someone looks into it. So maybe we can, again, I don't know who to ask, but we can find an automated way to create those GitHub issues in case those tooling scripts fail. And then it would help maintain this tooling scripts for all of us easier.
Where would it create the issue? Is that be in Node Core itself or in the repo? Like
Node Core would be like if one of the GitHub workflows are failing, like I created a couple of them in the past and I created in the core. because like it's out of context for the build script, like build working group, I think.
Yep.
So yeah, core would be better, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do agree.
So yeah, so maybe Marco, that's one of the things you can, like, if you're saying you want to get access to that group, maybe also thinking about like, are those notifications, maybe once you see the notifications, you can see if those are something that could be turned into, issues somehow automatically.
Yes, like for sure, all the dependency update, if the actions fail, it means there is some issue that we need to take care as a security work group, because and so it's good that we open a pull request, an issue that pings us, that let us know that there is some issue on this side. Otherwise, it's very hard. So yeah, if I get access to that team, that actions team, I will take care of that. Absolutely.
I can include you right now. I just want to check with Michael if we have a procedure for that, or I can just invite you.
Generally, I would always open an issue in the admin repo that basically says, hey, here's the context. Would like to add Marco to the actions team for blah, blah, blah reason. I'm going to do that unless I hear from anybody in the next couple days.
Mm-hmm.
The admin repo?
The admin repo. Yeah, that's what we usually do. Because it's good to, like, there's some documentation for why we're adding people to different groups, and yeah.
Marco is following. Okay, 2 P's. I always forget.
Okay, that's good. I think there are no more topics in the agenda. There is anything else that you want to discuss?
Yeah, I have a question and a small discussion around it. So as you know, in a month, I'm going to take a paternity leave for a couple of weeks, and I'm not going to be available. So I wanted to ask in terms of security, and then sort of like, because Michael and Rafael, like 2 TSC members are here, it would be good to a little bit like, I want to discuss certain things. So in case of security, Ada plays a really important role in Node ecosystem right now. And right now we have 2 owners in the Ada URL organization, which is me and Daniel. There is 2 more members, which is Anna and Robert. And there's 1 more user, which is Miguel, who is a contributor to Node as well. So in case of security, as well as signing and maintaining like the Ada URL, I know that this is out of topic of this meeting, but I thought that it would be a good place to discuss it, because URL plays a really important role in the URL, like the security of the project. So do you have any recommendations for me to make Ada much more secure? Like we added open like SSF badge thanks to Ulysses, but as well as the maintenance of the project, as well as like there is this factor called the bus factor. So what would happen if bus gets hit by one of the contributors? The project needs to continue, and I was thinking internally, like with myself, I was asking like, would it be a good thing to add a TSC member as an owner of the organization in order to secure the future of the project? Or I don't know, do you have any recommendations for me?
So
or
it's not part of the node.org, right? Is that?
No, it's Ada URL organization. It's on a different organization.
Right. So, I mean, that's one thing that's been done, or is the case for many of our dependencies that are mostly used in Node, is they're actually part of the Node organization. So that would be one option. If you move it into the node.org, you automatically get TSC members, as basically they all have access, right? Because we're org owners.
Like again, we initially made Ada URL as a different organization because of robustness and moving fast, and like because we were 2 people, there isn't any governance. We still don't know the future of the project, and I initially want other JavaScript runtimes to leverage Ada's performance, and moving it to Node.js might be a blocker for them. I don't know. There might be like bureaucracy and like political decision-making process there. I'm just thinking out loud right now. But in terms of like staying with the current approach, like, do you have any ideas that like maybe I can add? Again, as I said, like TSC and a couple of TSC members as an owner in order for them to release it, like make releases, update codes, and so on and so forth.
Well, what I can say is that considering that this is not a Node.js project, it will work pretty much the same as it works for OpenSSL or Delete, for instance. We will be aware of security patch. We can eventually help. I mean, I can eventually help as I do for other frameworks, for instance, Fastify, everything that is around of the Node.js ecosystem. But I don't think that including a TSM member as an owner of the organization would mean that we will look to all the security issues. I think once you have a predefined way to report vulnerabilities and a good threat model or something, I think it is the maximum we can do. Of course, it's a core dependency of Node.js project. So if you really need help, you can ping us and we can find volunteers. But again, it's volunteers.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that
So
we will do it.
My concern was not about maintaining like or fixing like issues or asking for help. It's mostly about when I go to paternity and I'm the only, like Daniel is not a collaborator. He doesn't have access to like request CI, those kinds of things, and like requesting fast track. And in that scenario, do we have a documentation about what would happen in order to request those kinds of things?
But why would he need it? I mean, I'm considering,
Like
let's say that.
Yeah, for example, yesterday there was a bug which is really important because of like IPv6 was not resolving correctly because of toASCII method, and we released it. I requested a fast track, and it got released. Like we merged Ada's latest version today. But if this wasn't the case, if I was on a paternity leave, I wouldn't request a fast CI, and like Daniel, either Daniel or somebody else needs to, like, we are okay with releasing Ada's next version, but releasing and like, I think this is a role called triager, no, what? Triager, sorry.
Just a question. You fixed the bug on Ada or on Node.js?
We fixed the bug on Ada, and then we released a new version, and then we fast-tracked it, and then there's another patch which is pending to get merged right now. And yeah, I like if this is what because I'm a collaborator, I can ask for a fast track. But if I wasn't available right now, then it would take 2 days to merge that into core and to fix this issue. And sometimes we are not that lucky to allow ourselves for 2 days. And in that scenario, like again, this is going out of context of this meeting, but I just wanted to ask your like security as well as maintenance perspective towards like one of the key dependencies of Node.
So 2 things I see here. If you fix if Daniel, for instance, or someone else fix the bugs on Ada and release it as a patch, eventually the new automation that Marco did, we can just trigger in a manual action, we will update and create a pull request. If the problem is with the fast track, it means that and if in the development side is breaking, Daniel can just send a message in that pull request of the update to require the fast track. And if that's failing on a release, it doesn't mean the fast track will not solve it, because just because it landed on main, it doesn't mean it was released. So I mean, always Daniel can always ping us or send a message either on Twitter or Slack. He's now on the OpenJS Slack. So
yeah, okay. So
I think we are covered.
Okay, so pinging is a possible scenario that I can do. Okay.
Yeah. I think also, like, if it's a security vulnerability, we hope people report through HackerOne or some private mechanism.
Yes, but those dependencies are a part of HackerOne because it's not a part of Node, but it's a dependency of Node.
Right. So we
So
have
if
had
there's
people
a-
report things to us like on Indici. Now that's part of the organization, so it makes a little more sense. I don't know. I think Indici uses like GitHub's private reporting mechanism.
No, we use the HackerOne as well, but we are trying to adopt the private security mechanism just for the patches instead of the Node.js
Okay.
private
So right.
reporting.
So I guess that's what we would recommend as a reporting entry point, like to, sign up through HackerOne, because that provides a way for people to report privately. It gives you a bit more time then to say, hey, we got a bug, we got to update it. But like Node doesn't just do releases tomorrow, right? We usually try and batch up our security releases, and it's quite a bit of work to get, releases out across lines. So as I think Raphael was saying, like, it's not just getting it landed in core, it's also getting, if it's really important security wise, it's getting releases out there, which is quite the effort for us.
Yeah, I mean, the process will be pretty much similar to what we have for OpenSSL. If OpenSSL lands a secret patch, we will be notified by, they send an email, but Daniel can just ping us in the Slack, really. And then we get notified about this release and talk, okay, let's do this secret release because this is a high vulnerability and we fix it on this as well.
Yeah, although there's much closer coordination, for example, for Indici type things, right? Like we will actually delay publicizing Indici fixes until Node is ready to do a security.
Oh, yes, in the case
right?
of the
Like,
Indici, yes.
If we're the major user, I can, I guess mentions you like to have other people adopt it and use it, but like if Node's the major user, it could make sense to say, well, we'll sync it with the next release and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like Node is the major adopter of ADA and the main reason that we developed ADA. So yeah, that all makes sense. What I don't, what I can't understand, like what I want to ask is the only interface that ADA has. So no one will realize that there will be a vulnerability unless they install ADA and run it. And most of the time they will realize it through node.js saying that we passed the URL to permissions model and somehow we bypassed it. And I'm like, in that case, 99% of the time it will be on the ADA side because I deliberately kind of extracted the business logic of parsing a URL out of Node in order to make the maintenance as easy as possible. So in that scenario, then who would contact whom in the ADA organization?
In that scenario, if they've discovered it through Node, what we'd like them to do, people to do, is report it through our Node HackerOne, right? Because you're saying like, here's a problem in Node. We have a triage team who would eventually, look at that, and we'd say, oh, this is an URL parsing. Like either the person might like figure out that it's in ADA or ask you for help, for example. Like we know you're a collaborator within the project, so we'd be like, hey, we got a problem here. We can pull individuals into our HackerOne to say like, hey, here's an issue that's related to an area that you know about, and we'd probably pull you in through there. Like depending on how close the relationship is, for something that's clearly, say, an OpenSSL issue, we may suggest people report to OpenSSL because we don't have that relationship to say, hey, can you have a fix? I think in this case, though, we know where it came from. We know you're part of our organization. You get pulled in directly to say like, hey, can you work on a fix? Our next security release, which is not planned for him, but we're like going to target this time frame. Is that something you can work on a fix for between now and then, right? And then like the Indici case, we synced the Indici release, went out the same day as the Node release, so that like we don't have things disclosed for a long time, in a gap there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like I'm new to these kinds of things. That's why I'm asking so much in detail, and it's good to know that we are in compliance, like Ada is compliance with Node and Node is compliant with Ada and like these kinds of things. And I think like,
Yeah, so I think
that's
like
good to know.
if it would be good for, you know, if you want to have people be able to report directly to you, like in our security.md, we have some information that says, hey, you know, for security reports, here's how you can report them to us. Well, we find HackerOne works very nicely because it lets you take a private report and then publicize it later on, which is nice. So you can be transparent once it's okay to be transparent. Other approaches are things like emails, which for a larger project didn't work so well. Maybe for like, you know, if there's just a couple collaborators, it's a possibility, but I think for us, it worked very well to have like a system where you have a record. It'll help you issue CVEs if we were going to issue a CVE specifically to Ada versus Node. And so that would be my recommendation because it doesn't cost anything and it really does help.
Yeah. I think we need to I need to have a talk with Daniel about the governance model of Ada and what the future will hold, and like
exactly, like you figure out what you think.
Yeah,
because you can explore the different options of like many of the dependencies are in the node org, which then sort of pulls it under the regular umbrella, or as a separate entity. You can figure out how you want those to go to. And
yeah, okay, thank you.
Any question, you can ping me also on Slack, and then you'll be free as well.
Okay, yeah, thanks Rafael.
Okay, fantastic.
So that's it.
Yeah, I think any other topic, we are already over the time. So yeah, I think that's it. So thank you very much and see you soon.
Thanks to everybody.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.